St. Louis's own Tim Twellman. This Riverview Garden native grew up in an incredibly athletic, multi-sport driven family. A bloodline from his father through himself and siblings down through his own children, pro sports has always been part of the conversation. Tim talks about his path, the NASL, Taylor's experiences, and his new passion, Choose It Right, a platform helping kids achieve the next level of their athletic careers. Let's go.
Oh,
Jesus
man.
Christ. Here we go. Red lights on and we're off. Soccer Dad Pod. How's it going, boys?
It's going. A little dreary and cold today compared to
I know.
the Monday that we had.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. That's hence the song selection today.
Yeah.
I'm trying to manifest. It came out of nowhere because I woke up this morning, walked out. You know, the kids were kind of moving out the door, and I went out, ran a couple errands. It wasn't bad, you know. Single button-up shirt. Didn't need a coat. Now, at the time of this recording, 4:30, it's St. Louis wintertime, and it sucks. I think it's the dreary part of it, though, you know. Like, I don't mind cold weather, you know.
No, I don't either. It's really difficult to go from a 70-degree weather day that's sunny and then this, like in a 24-hour turnaround.
Well,
that's
and this is, you know, usually we save the weather analysis
for Jared.
But all the snow and melt, and you know, when you look outside, knowing that everything is mushy, it just doesn't. You smell must.
Yeah.
Yeah. What a waste of a minute and a half there. Mm-hmm. Boys, you good? Good?
Yeah.
New episode here today. We're going to be chatting with a household name in St. Louis in the soccer world here in just a little bit. We appreciate him joining us. I want to do a quick little recap because the episode, we switched him a little bit because 2 episodes back, we had St. Louis's own, the Patrick Schulte, out the door, and at the time of this release, we will have released our buddy Andy Fleming. Sorry, yeah. Thank you. Quick brain fart there. In Andy's episode in particular, I'm telling you, if you are going through this process, or you think you want to go through this process, and it's actually a process we're going to be covering with our guest here a little bit later, but you are a player or you are parents of a kid that is quote excelling and wants to play at the next level, and define excelling later, or in your
define next level.
Yeah, define next level. Yeah, there you go. Our conversation with Andy was very direct, to the point, poignant. You know, I recall that night, actually, Jared, it was you and I that did that one. It was one of those, he gets off the line and we're like, oh, there you go, truth bombs.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't wait. I mean, I wasn't able to join you guys on that one, but I'm looking forward to hearing what you guys had to say with him and what he had to respond with. Because I think that not only how you determine your path, but also what that path is. And I'm looking forward to talking to our guest about some of those things too.
I think with him specifically, what was most refreshing for me is in a world of there's a place for everybody and go here and go there and I think you're good, or sugarcoating it a little bit to the family and or player. He was real direct. He didn't pull any punches, and I really like that, especially if you're going to pay for a service. Coincidentally, I think our guest today will tell you the same thing, because I think there are services out there that may not. They're in it to get revenue and volume, and are they really in it to place players where they are appropriate?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really ultimately. Isn't that ultimately the crux of every single soccer family's issue? Whether it's U6, CYC, you know, I mean, actually, the parishes tell you where you need to go in that case. But choose your club, then you got to choose your school, then you got to choose, you know, maybe a different club if you're elevating, and then maybe you get to a particular club, and then you're forced to choose between, you know, high school and club, and it's just constantly a landscape of choice based on ability and perception, right?
Well, and it's interesting that you bring up the word choice, because I think one thing that we have that's unique in this country over a lot of other countries is daunting choices every single day. The type of car you want to drive, the type of cereal you want to have, what kind of coffee do you want to drink, how many beers, what kind of beer do you want?
Yes.
There's so many choices, and then you compound that with actual life choices, like where do you want your kid to go to school, for preschool, for grade school, for high school, for college. It's a daunting thing.
All right. So now that we've completely scared you away from wanting to try and get your kids to play soccer in college, let's have a little fun here. I want to do a quick shout out our friends over at Session Taco, previously known as Mission, and that's a good story in and of itself. You know, it's like the big dude down in Texas, wherever they're at, they wanted to like squash our favorite taco joint.
Cease and desist.
Kind of lame. It reminds me of KC going after the soccer or soccer capital pod or remember that?
U.S. Soccer Capital.
Is that what it was?
I think it was, or Soccer Capital. Anyway,
I don't remember their cease and desist work.
I just don't understand.
Like, so lame.
I'm assuming there are lawyers out there that's their job, is to find.
Hi, my name is Steve. I'm a cease and desist attorney, and I have no friends.
Right.
I will work hard for you.
Yeah. So I guess they scour the internet for possible, copyright infringement, and then make their bank off of.
I hope somebody tries to come
just
after
picking on
Soccer
people.
Dad Pod, because yours truly, we locked that up.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
All right, nice.
Copyrighted mofos.
Smart.
You hear that, Casey? Come at us.
Well, we are boring people. So Session Taco, your name here, Session Taco now, no longer your name here. Point one of the day.
What you got? Can't be weather.
It's not going to be weather.
Okay.
I am going to bring up, and I'm sure our guest today knows, the adult co-ed women over 30, over 40, the long time, been playing for 30 years. The Miter tournament was just played this weekend. And if you've kicked a soccer ball in this town, or if you've been in one of the Vetas, the Miter tournament is one of our gems. This year, with the popularity of the TST and whatnot, our very own Dueling for Lincolns, they win the open division in the Miter. But it's not about who won, who lost, who was in it, who was there. None of that, because everybody that's been involved in the Miter know the answers to that. I just truly enjoy it. I just going there.
I could tell.
Just having a beer. I mean, there's everybody from Division I college coaches to high school coaches to ex-pros to scouts to just your neighbor. I mean, it's just if you're a true soccer lover in our town, it's one of the true great events that our annual indoor circuit has to offer.
I was really amazed, because there's so many cliches when it comes to indoor soccer in general. But then you think about the times where you're in high school or college or whatever, and you're still playing in the, you go play indoor, you play in the open on Friday night at Brentwood or wherever you're playing, right? And it's all the same, because there's a group of dudes that are always there every single week, and nobody really knows them, but they're pretty good, and they have a backpack, and in their backpack they have 7 different colored shirts, so they can just stay there and play and play and play and play.
Yep.
That's what I noticed at the Miter. There were dudes, like the one guy that plays for Dueling. He's got the curly, longer hair, this ponytail, and he rolled his shorts up, which is a little weird. I think he was on like 4 teams.
Yeah, he was playing open, co-ed, and I think over 30.
Like, how do you...
He's fit.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Like, how do you not have 3 pulled hamstrings?
Yeah.
But there were, literally guys that would sit on the bleachers with a backpack with all those jerseys. And people knew, well, if we're running low, because you do in the over 40 especially.
I know what they would do.
At night.
They would sit there and they'd watch how quickly each team is slowly walking out to the bench, and they're doing a head count.
Well,
they got 6.
In his defense, you have to be rostered. And in this year's miter, big hot to do.
Oh my God!
There was a team. One of the teams that won a semifinal to go into the final was disqualified because of a said roster issue.
And it was almost an international incident.
Yes,
Controversy.
police were called.
Wow.
Yeah, the po.
Oh, I want to get into that off the mic, maybe.
It's a pretty serious tournament.
And then there were people in there like chanting, like stirring the pot a little bit. I don't know who they were, but they were chanting.
Oh, boy.
All right, session. What you got? What's your session?
So mine is about promotion and relegation. So today's, you asked me, JB, when I came in, how things were today, and I said it's a weird day. And the reason I didn't tell you is because I wanted to say it here. Is I
just
actually
thought you were being standoffish.
had got a weird. It's a weird day. So several people that I work with were let go today. The same
You guys
day,
have promotion relegation in this
the same day
Salesforce?
that I found out about those people getting let go, I was promoted.
Whoa.
And that is a very bizarre feeling. And I can route it back to the show in that we do talk about promotion and relegation a lot. In order for somebody in the championship to get promoted to Premier League, somebody from Premier League has to get demoted. And so I was looking through some of the most interesting trends, and what's striking to me is, do you know who's in the bottom of the championship right now? And championship, by the way, is the league right below Premier League. The bottom of the championship right now is Luton Town.
Who were the darlings?
Luton Town had been promoted in the 23-24 season to English Premier League. They get relegated this season, and they're going to get relegated from championship down again. So a swing of over 300 million euros in a very short time.
See, that's what I think about it. I think about the, I don't know their specific structure, but I have to assume it's probably a couple wealthy individuals that do own the team, maybe a small consortium, whatever. But as you watch games go by and you're in the bottom three, like you literally are watching, millions to tens of millions, potentially hundreds of millions dissipating because your boys can't score goals.
Yep. Or is it like remember the Marlins back in the day when they would buy championships? It seemed like every 3 years in the late 90s, early 2000s, the Marlins were in the World Series. They'd win it, and then they would be terrible the next 2 or 3 years, and they'd build it back up for a year. And so I'm curious if there's some sort of economics behind it too. You invest enough to get to the championship, to the
Well, that's
Premier
what I
League.
was going to ask you. Did you get a raise?
I did.
Oh,
yeah.
You don't need to tell us.
Thank God.
But he did show up
I
with the
bought
12
the
pack
beer
Miller
you're
Lite.
drinking right now, jerkface.
Jeez, come on, Salesforce. We need to see that shareholder valuing.
But yeah, it's just it's a weird feeling. I mean, when you go through something personally uplifting, but
Your
also
arms do look longer. They're not. You've had T-Rex arms in your life.
I am the last person you should be telling that to.
Go ahead, JB.
It's crocodile arms. Is what we're talking about. My session. I just want to name drop our boy, another St. Louis, and speaking of the championship, he's back. He had a little bit of an injury over the holidays, but that curly redhead from out northwest.
O'Fallon. Let's just say where it's from. It's O'Fallon.
Depends. I wonder if you know what? One day it's either a 314 or 636 cell phone, and if it's 636 number, I'll give you the O'Fallon. If it's not, St. Louis.
Okay.
Josh Sargent scored. He's back, getting the minutes again. Knocks another one in the net. And that was just kind of cursory, review of American players abroad that are really thriving. Clearly, Pulisic is doing well, but pound for pound, including Balogun and the rest of the crew.
I'm taking Sarge.
I'll put Sarge is easily, equally, if not outperforming the rest. Pound for pound on their team, value to the team, and points produced.
I agree, and I had to put in like a session point for real quick because our own friend of the show and friend of our families is Lorenzo Cornelius.
Oh, yeah.
Another call up. So he's going to Costa Rica for a couple weeks for the U17 qualifier for CONCACAF. So this will be his second call up to the official camp.
I think that's a qualifier for the World Cup.
I think it is.
Yeah. So, and this is the big boy camp. This isn't just go play a tournament and somewhere. This is the pool they're going to pick from for that World Cup roster.
And we'll get
that's big time.
We'll get some questions out to our guest on this, but I couldn't walk away from not calling out Lorenzo.
That's a good call because I mean obviously
Maria.
The boys have been with him for a long journey.
Yeah.
If you're listening and you don't know, go on Instagram, do your thing, follow Lorenzo Cornelius. You'll see it all over the city posts, especially on the academy side. This kid's special. Like he is when he's on the field and the ball's anywhere near him, just sit back. The show's about to begin. And if you get a chance, I'm sure these games will be streamed.
I would think
because
so.
when they were in Croatia a couple months ago, they were, and he's
Fox
on the field with Cavan and the other big names in that U17 age group, and absolutely pound for pound holds his own. You're going to be impressed. And
last time,
yeah, exactly. So those are our session taco cease and desist that mission. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to be talking to a Twellman. You guys know that name. So like, review, follow, share. Soccer Dad Pod. We'll be right back after this break. Soccer Dad Pod is happy to present a new partnership that all three of us personally use. Choose It Right is a fully integrated platform that helps coordinate and organize your player's bio, their grades, pictures, references, videos, stills, and more. With communication templates and tips and tricks videos, Choose It Right becomes an incredibly helpful tool in navigating the college recruiting process by presenting your player to prospective coaches in an organized and professional manner. Check out the link in our show notes and benefit from our special Soccer Dad Pod discount. Now, back to the pod. All right. Soccer Dad Pod, we're coming back in here, sticking with the theme. Only this time it's Zach Bryan. Title of this one is Summertime's Close, which is really not that
not
close.
that close.
Again, manifesting.
Yeah, no, I appreciate what you're trying to do here.
Yeah. So somebody that's listening to this 6 months from now, they're going to feel right at home.
They're right. It is. It's June. It's almost summertime.
Holy cow, how did they know? Prescient. Soccer Dad Pod, we are back. We've got our guest now on the air with us. We have unmuted his mic. He suffered through the intro, which, first off, thank you very much. Joining us today is Mr. Tim Twellman. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm really happy to be here. Looking forward to this.
We played a little tag. We've tried to do this a couple times, but apparently you're kind of busy still, right? Like.
No, it works. This is working perfect for the schedule, so this is good.
I love it.
Good.
Well, for those obviously that have already read their dashboard and that are familiar with you, I mean, you're a stalwart within the St. Louis soccer community. You have been around playing the game in the game at a really, really high level and engaging the game post career. Up until this point, obviously, your family tree continued that legacy as well. So just help us out a little bit. I mentioned before we came on the mic that we wanted to start off and just kind of put a pin in the map. A little bit of the typical STL questions. Are you north, south? What high school?
Right.
Or your thin crust? Where do you get your thin crust from? So if you don't mind, just take a minute or so and just kind of give us a little bit of a historical resume, if you don't mind.
No problem. Yeah, I grew up in the North County area, in the Florissant area. Spanish Lake is where I grew up.
Nice.
Okay, and the parish was St. Aloysius at the time, which is where we played parish soccer. From there, I went to St. Louis U High. Okay, just like both boys as well. All my brothers went there as well. And then from there, I went to SIUE and played college baseball and soccer. And then from there, I went and played for the Minnesota Kicks for the majority of my career, and I ended up playing 10 years professionally. This was during the NASL, the Pele days.
Nice. Look at that, man. He just wrapped up roughly 25 years of soccer prowess in less than 60 seconds.
Well, and
This dude, he's an elevator master. Tell me your story.
yeah, and I love that. But you glossed over quite a few big points there, Tim. And one of them that you brought up was just the St. Aloysius days and SIUE High. But you mentioned your brothers, Steve and Mike, who also played. Yes,
Yeah, Steve and Mike. Yeah, and my brother Tom actually played Major League Baseball, minor league baseball.
Well, and your brother Tom has had a major impact on my life. I don't know if you know this or not, but I get my haircut at his place every other week.
The best part about it is I don't have to pay. So.
I got to get in on that. But, I mean, just gloat on your brothers for just a little bit,
Sure.
because we're going to talk about you the whole time. But I think what's interesting about the Twellman family is it's not just, I mean, I think a lot of people know who your son is, and we'll get to him.
Sons, for that matter.
Yes. But just talk a little bit about growing up around such a competitive group of boys and how you all had such kind of pretty phenomenal careers at a time where professional soccer was just still somewhat infant.
Well, even the college scene was not as what it is today. My brother Steve went on to play at Michigan State, which was unheard of, except there was a few other ones that came from here, like the Buzzy Demling went to play there, Johnny Hauska. There was a few of them. So that they were recruiting out of the St. Louis market. But following their footsteps wasn't easy because they were very good at the time, and I was a real late developer. I mean, I didn't make a team until I was a junior in high school. So.
Wow.
So I didn't, I got cut from football, baseball, soccer, all the way through till I was a junior. And it was because I matured late, physically, probably still maturing mentally now.
I feel you.
Yeah.
No, but it was a challenge following my two older brothers, but, I was able to. And then my younger brothers did the same thing. So they followed up. My brother Mike, my brother Bill, who's actually a deacon in the Florissant area at St. Norbert's, was probably the best athlete, but never played anything. Because maybe he was tired of watching all our games. I'm not sure. But he's a talented kid as well. And I also have a sister, Ellen, who was also a volleyball coach. So I want to make sure I cover everybody so I don't get in trouble.
No, I appreciate you filling on the blanks there.
Yeah, so let me go the other direction on the family tree, not down through your kids, but let's go up. Because if you have kind of that kind of pedigree popping out, you and your siblings across all these sports, these at extremely high levels. Talk a little bit about mom and dad. Was dad an athlete? Was mom an athlete? Were they?
Yeah, my dad played. They didn't have what they have now, right? So he played whatever was semi-pro baseball, but he just made it available to all of us. So that was his contribution. He made it happen for all of us.
So as a Spanish Lake family, I'm assuming just a working class, you're in your parish, to get everybody and send them to SIUE High how important was it to your parents to get you guys to go to an institution like that? And then where did your sister go?
She went to Rosary High School, which was right out in that area.
Okay.
But I mean, I think it was more, my dad started off with my brother Steve, putting him at St. Louis U High, which Steve liked and did well. So Tom followed, and then Tim followed, right?
Yeah.
And I followed. So it was, my dad had a company that he owned a pipe company, so he was able to do things for us probably more so than other families, which was nice. And he just really made things available, just like we all do it for our own kids.
Yeah, I mean, and kind of what I want to touch on a little bit, because just growing up with Taylor and James, and Taylor was an excellent baseball player too. You mentioned your brother was an MLB player, and I know you were in rarefied air. You were a multi-sport athlete in college. How important was baseball to your family? Because this is a soccer pod, but let's talk about that a little bit, because you guys were pretty good baseball players as well.
Yeah, well, it was really important. Now you go to my wife's side of the family, okay, which is the Delsings, okay, who's a golfer, but her dad played Major League Baseball for 18 years.
Wow.
So baseball, it was just part of our family. And we really struggled focusing on one sport because we didn't want to, right? Even my own kids, Taylor didn't. I mean, Taylor told Ziggy Smith, who was the coach of the U20 team when he was supposed to go to a tournament, Ziggy, I can't make it. I have a baseball tournament. Now that's unheard of.
Unheard of
Right.
now for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
And my wife and I are in the other room thinking, oh my God, he just shot himself, right?
You're yelling from the other room. No, Ziggy, hold on, hold on. Let's hold on.
And this was before the U20 World Cup, but when the World Cup came around, they still came back and asked Taylor to go. So, thank God that worked out for him.
Yeah.
But he really wanted to play Major League, or Taylor wanted to play college baseball. So that was a given.
So let's talk soccer. Let's get back to you and
Yeah.
kind of that the transitional years coming out of SLU High, or maybe let's talk about SLU High for a second, because you said you really didn't thrive or grow into yourself until junior year of high school. Obviously, you're playing multi-sports then junior, senior year. Let's talk specifically about the focus or the relevance of soccer at that time, because obviously SIU is right on, is up next. At what point, did you know, hey, it's going to be soccer. I'd like to keep the other sports as well because you played baseball as well. Right. But why SIUE, and what did it mean to you to be able to play both sports is really the question I'm trying to get to. Yeah.
Well, I think my brother Tom did the same thing. Okay. So, brothers are following what their brothers are doing. So I followed Tom, and Tom's a really good baseball player, and he played soccer at SIU as well. I thought I could do the same thing. So at the time, when you look at the college scenes, it was SIU and SLU that dominated this area, Indiana as well. But then it was a handful of schools on the East Coast and the West Coast, but that was it. So I wanted to go to a top college soccer program as well as play baseball. And it was SLU or SIU, and SLU's baseball wasn't the same as SIU baseball, so I just wanted to go to a more competitive baseball program at the time. So that's really how it evolved. I mean, it wasn't easy doing both sports in college, and it's probably unheard of in today's world to play soccer and baseball. I mean, I would have spring baseball games, and the soccer players would be booing me when I go up to bat because they're like, they're training for soccer, and I'm playing baseball. So, but it was really an experience I would never.
Well, let me just ask a follow up then, and we'll kind of clip to the next phase. You have your college career. You're a dual sport athlete, but given the fact that you were drafted and you ended up playing pro for so long, soccer at some point became your sport.
Right.
When did you know, and did you think going into your SIUE days that a pro pathway was the plan?
No, I don't think that really showed itself until I was like a junior in college. Okay, and there was a player ahead of me that was basically my idol in college. It was John Strumwall, and he's an extremely talented player. I just idolized everything he did, and he got drafted to go play in the NASL, and I'm thinking, well, I want to do that. So I would constantly be calling John, who was playing in Houston at the time in the NASL. I go, John, you think I have a chance? Come on, John, do I have a chance? And he goes, Tim, you'll be fine, just play. And so when my junior year soccer finished and I was going into my senior year of baseball, I decided to, I was graduating early so I could get out. And I just left my senior year before I played baseball. And I went and got drafted by Minnesota. So it just showed itself that I was very comfortable playing the sport of soccer, not so much in the sport of baseball. So
I've always wanted to ask you, because if you look at your timeline and you go into those Minnesota years, and you kind of bounce back and forth. You play indoor, you play outdoor, and then you kind of had a little bit of a taste of both of them. At that time in our North American game, which did you like better?
Well, I hated the indoor game.
You hated the indoor game?
Yeah. Just because physically we were playing on a floor like this, which is concrete. Basically.
With a thin sheet of
either that or they painted it green. I'm not sure what they did. But it was, and that was hard. But playing outdoor soccer in the NASL at that time was awesome.
Okay.
The Cosmos were, it was like Miami being in town. Pele would come in, there would be 70,000 at the game.
Wow.
So it was the same kind of setup. So the move from that to indoor was okay, but I would have preferred to stay outdoors, and it just disappeared.
Yeah,
outdoor disappeared.
Exactly, because that we've talked to so many guys from your era, and I almost feel bad for all you pros that could really play the game and be in the rarefied air with those NASL, because in a time where our men's game in our domestic leagues, there was a time when we really only had indoor, and like it would have been really awesome for you guys to be experienced what today's MLS is.
Yeah, and I was able to stay in the NASL almost to the very end. Right before it ended, I was on Chicago Sting at the time, and they sold me or traded me to Kansas City, indoor.
You guys won it at the very end with the Sting, correct?
Right, but it was just a matter of I just preferred playing outdoors. I mean,
Was it Kansas City that ruined it for you as far as indoor? Is that what you're trying to say?
Well, we could say that and make us all feel better.
Yes.
That's
what I'm going for, Tim.
It would make me feel better.
Yeah, JB would really like for you to say that. No, I think it's interesting because the journeyman career, we've heard it from almost every guest we've had during that time frame. Right. And just the amount of effort and time and sacrifice you had to put into your body, to your family. When did you decide, was it your decision to hang them up and move on from the pro side of the sport and go into other ventures? Or was it more, I gotta make a change?
Yeah. I mean, physically I was nurturing injuries all the time. So I just couldn't do it anymore. I could, we watch a video with the team and I could see how screwed up how I was playing was just crap at the time. And the coach would never say anything. I go, something's wrong, right? Because it was obvious that I wasn't playing well, so it was time to move out. So I was just done. And I just it was like the middle of the year of the Kansas City indoor season that I actually went in and retired because I was just done.
Wow. Okay.
But it was good. I got to play I never, like when the Steamers came around, my brother Tom was actually at the beginning was like the first GM.
Oh, okay.
And so he called and said, Tim, come play for the Steamers. And I'm playing outdoor for the Sting at the time. And there was no way I was going to leave that. It was just, I mean, we played at Wrigley Field. And I mean, it was fun.
Yeah.
And we played with some really good players. You had Johan Cruyff was in the league. I mean,
Beckenbauer.
It was crazy. And the difficult part was for an American at the time was
getting on the field.
Was only 3 of us could play in the game. They had to have 3 Americans on the field. So when spring training came around, the only thing you cared about was what Americans were they bringing in.
Yep.
You didn't care about, Johan Cruyff's there, great, but he's not taking my spot. There's going to be an American taking. So you just end up kicking the shit out of every American that came in.
I do. Yeah, I mean that's what I'm talking about with that kind of cutthroat nature of that lifestyle.
Well, we didn't make hardly any money.
Right.
So in the wintertime when we were playing just outdoor, you had to go work. So I came back here and went to work for my dad's pipe company, loading trucks and doing whatever I could just to make extra money.
And then you're going back and playing with Beckenbauer and Cruyff and
they're making, they're making crazy money and we're making nothing.
Yeah.
Right. But I would never change it. It was so much fun.
I love to hear that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about the NASL days. I mean, you've already been name dropping, the Cruyffs and the Pelés, et cetera. Talk about just maybe the impact of a particular player. I'm sure, because you spent enough time in the league that there were a lot of those names that were not only on the field against you, but they were in your locker room. Can you give us a story maybe of somebody, that is of that kind of elevated nature that, maybe impressed you on a personal level or helped you, off the field or maybe inspired you to be more as a player?
Well, I think when I first went to Minnesota, I realized what my limitations were right away starting to play with everybody. I was like, I got to improve. So there was a couple players. There was an Alan Merrick who played for the Minnesota Kicks, who was also the captain, and a Peter Short. They were both English players. And one of them has passed away, but Alan Merrick still lives in Minnesota now. They looked after me, even though I wasn't playing. The first year I played 5 games out of 35. And the rest of the time I was in the stands watching, which really pisses you off, right?
Yeah.
Watching.
Yeah.
So, but then, and at the end of that season, I was going to leave and go home to St. Louis, and they talked me into staying. They're like, Tim, you're going to be fine. Just stick it out. And if otherwise, I would have left. So they were always pulling for me. So those 2 players were really particularly helpful. There's another one, Charlie George, who was a famous forward who played for Arsenal, I believe. He came over, and he lived right next to me. in the same apartment complex. His apartment was a lot nicer than mine. I'm not sure. I'm not sure how that happened. I think they actually had furniture and we didn't. I'm not sure. No, but he really thought that I played like a midfield behind him. So, and he was a forward. So he really took me under his wing to help me get better. There was just a lot of players along the way that helped me through it. And it really, when I look back, it was almost everything in Minnesota when I played for them, because I played there the longest, the 6 years. So those are the best memories.
Yeah, and for me, I think we got to mention it going through your timeline. You have one cap.
Yeah, one.
And that's got to mean a whole heck of a lot to you. And the one thing that I noticed when I was reading about it and just kind of knew of it because of just the St. Louis history and try to be a historian about it, you played defense in that game, did you not? And I don't think you played much defense, at least early on in your professional career, correct?
No, I came in as a forward.
Yep.
And I was like a goal scorer forward, like at SIU. But I came in the first few games that playing in Minnesota, I scored goals in the preseason games. But the first game of the season, I don't even have my jersey hanging up in the locker room. I'm like, what happened? The coach goes, well, you're not playing. I go, well, obviously, my jersey's not hanging up. But he just brought in 2 English forwards, and then I was out. So I had to quickly adapt to playing whatever they asked. And that was really the downfall of most Americans. And even today, for the young kids, you have to be able to adapt, because you might think you're a forward or, defensive midfielder, and you come in and the coach will say, no, you're going to play right back. So I ended up playing right back, center, midfield, whatever they said,
Yeah.
And I didn't care. And occasionally when the forwards were, out because of injuries, they put me back up at forward. So I just got to do everything. And the American players that showed up and said, no, I'm just a midfielder, they were gone. Because they had to, if you didn't adapt, you got pushed out quickly.
So let's take a second and talk about the American players in particular, because at that time, obviously St. Louis had a massive kind of fingerprint on the league. It was almost like the DNA of the NASL as it pertained to those 3 American players.
Right.
There's a good chance, at minimum of 1 and 3 were from St. Louis.
Absolutely.
So talk a little bit about, being part of that club. You're a St. Louis guy. You went to SLU High. You played at SIUE. And you're in the professional league with the Cruyffs and the Pelés of the world. And every roster you go to play against or they come to you, you inevitably are seeing one of your homies. What did that mean to you? And talk about some of the names at the time that were your boys that were, on some of these other teams.
Well, I mentioned one already, and it was John Strumwell, but almost every team had at least an American in that pool somewhere. You had, you went and played against Al Trost, Joey Clark. All those players were playing throughout the league. There's, the names, you could just keep adding up to them. But when I went to Minnesota, there was probably 5 Americans there. At that time, they released all 5, and they brought in all new players. And they were older players. There was Tommy Howe was one of them.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so he was just about finished at the time. So you're always running into St. Louis players wherever you went.
That's pretty special.
Yeah, I can't imagine, because it's like, it's surreal. It's unfortunate, and if it does exist, I haven't seen it, but the whole idea of can you imagine like a documentary or something that's just the St. Louis players during the time of, Pele running around in New York,
Or fast forward, his boy goes to New England, and who's he playing with? Pat, Ralston. And they're just knocking each other's heads off in those storied trainings. So
true.
your son got to even experience it.
Absolutely. They went from, you show up and we got commercial.
No, go ahead.
Oh, okay, no, he showed up in the New England area, and Pat Noonan came the next year, but Steve Ralston was there, so it's just,
So cool.
Yeah, and that was the best time of their lives too.
Well, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we are going to talk about your kids. We're going to talk about, this is called the Soccer Dad Pod, so now we need to talk about the dad aspect of that. And then I want to, obviously get into Choose It Right and kind of its role, and, the whole college process, et cetera, and experience down in the city. Plenty more to talk about. Tim Twellman will be right back after this break. Like, review, follow, share. Catch you on the flip side.
lost faith in the world.
The term staycation was really invented by soccer moms. Located 1 hour and 7 minutes from the Arch, the Music Box Chalet at Innsbruck is a hidden gem. Buried in 3 acres of private woods, the Music Box has a master suite for just you, a loft and second bath for them, and a vinyl collection to meet your every mood. The full-size kitchen will easily accommodate 3 to 12 bottles of rosé, while the huge fire pit seating area will keep the big kids busy. Golf, fishing, kayaking, pickleball, or simply reading a book with Mother Nature, all at your fingertips. Visit either VRBO or Airbnb to find the Music Box Chalet. And now, back to those guys.
Drums, please.
All right.
You're going summertime every song, huh?
I am.
And you can't go wrong with the little turntables at the beginning.
Little DJ Jazzy Jeff and the right-hand slapper Will Smith.
Oh man, that's
Do you-
funny.
was that not one of the stupidest / funniest moments ever at an award show?
That just ruined them, though, didn't it?
You know, I mean,
I mean, you don't really see them anymore.
maybe Men in Black 2 did as well. You know, it's all sus.
The innocence of the Fresh Prince days.
Yeah, we're back here with Mr. Twellman. We just talked a lot about kind of your pathway, your pedigree, experiences, etc. You know, you were able to do what so few people are able to do in this world, and that is to get paid to play a sport, and travel around and really experience, you know, life through a different lens. But, you know, but there's what's that saying? You know, we as parents, we hope one thing, that our children live a better life than we did, right?
Right.
And as it pertains to soccer, and no offense to your career, you had a great career, but we would be remiss to not talk about your son, Taylor. You know, as a dad, again, Soccer Dad Pod, Taylor early, you know, he was clipping early. In fact, I remember we've talked about this a couple times, you know, because I'm from Granite City, right? So hearing about him and that SLU High team coming over tournament champions, and, you know, and other things like that. And obviously, Jared, you played with, against.
Yeah. I got to see just really how dominant he was from a youth player, soccer wise, baseball wise. I mean, he was just an overall athlete.
Yes,
and even so, and we have to, and I'll let you ask the question, but I mean, his younger brother James, if it wasn't for an injury, I mean, really was starting to butt on his own. And then their younger sister Alex, she was pretty damn good too.
Yeah.
You know, so you had 3 in a row that were that were pretty dominant.
Right.
So my question to you is, you know, we'll just skip straight forward to, you know, the Ziggy calls and the bigger opportunities, and him, you know, getting drafted. And we alluded to, you know, his time up in the Northeast. As a dad, you know, you always want better for your own. When he hit that draft board and, you know, was signing those deals, and, you know, it was clear he was going to become, you know, ideally a long-term player, and he's in the U.S. national team mix, and he's going to big games for our country. What was that ride like for you?
I mean, it's special, right? It definitely was. But I'd say growing up, you know, he was very competitive and very dominating at an early age, right? So every sport he played, he did really well. Mm-hmm. You know, and it's just a God-given talents that he has. And so we just try to protect him, so he, you know, stayed humble, which he always has, but also just to make sure that we weren't letting coaches take advantage of him. Because, you know, as you know, in the club world,
Yeah.
you know, they were constantly calling to say, is Taylor coming to this game, and there was a lot of no's, because he was doing other things, other sports, as well as we just didn't want him to be traveling all over the country for what? We're not sure what it was all for at the time.
So I want to ask you a question then, because all of us, would love and dream of our own kids hitting the levels that Taylor did. Given that you kind of knew a lay of the land, even though it's a different land,
Right.
MLS versus an NASL, and a lot changes.
The college game evolving before
Right.
our eyes.
How did you view, what was exactly your role, and how did you balance maybe the percentages, the pie of who you were between empathetic father, protective father / business consultant / soccer agent / part-time trainer. So, there's a lot of things that go on
Right.
when you have a child that is on that pathway. How did you manage all of that?
Well, I mean, actually, without my wife, it would have been difficult because she was very good at it as well. And really, when you get down to all the coaches in the sports, I knew most of them, so I could talk to them personally and tell them what I felt. So they understood if I said, no, he's not going, they weren't going to punish Taylor for it.
Yeah.
Okay, but as you know, in the club world, you can't really say no. Right?
Yeah.
You can't.
You can,
but
but there's natural consequences.
Right, and there were times where they left him out of the team because he missed a game, but I didn't care about that because I go, this is my kid, right? My kid, my sons, my daughter. I'm gonna manage what they do and not let somebody else dictate it, because I was always I always told the coaches, look, we're not traveling to go play games unless we win and move on. We're not just going to Omaha to play in a tournament.
Go to Kansas City to play a
Right.
St. Louis team in the final.
Right. And you always, I don't care where you went, you always played St. Louis teams.
Right.
And I go, look, if we can't beat him here, so why are we going up there, right? It just didn't make sense to me. And so they didn't like that necessarily, but again, I didn't really care so much because these are our kids,
Yeah.
right? And I'm going to make sure that.
So from a parent standpoint, there's also that point where you got to let the little bird fly, right? And these clubs, especially at the pro academy level, et cetera, they're really evaluating kind of the mental maturity as well, their ability. Okay, so if we're going to invest in this person, we're going to sign this person. How do we know they can live away from home? How do we know they can handle the road?
Right.
What was it about Taylor off of the soccer pitch that maybe was an indicator to you knowing the lay of the land and being a pro athlete? Were you comfortable with the path he was going down, or what were some of the telltale signs in which he can do this? Those things required that are above and beyond soccer.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think it happened when he was maybe a senior in high school, where he was looking to try to picking out what college he wants to go to. And baseball is always part of his plan. I want to play both sports. So that limited schools right away. The UCLA's, as Ziggy Smith told him, no, you come in here to play soccer, you can't play baseball. So Taylor goes, okay, I'm not coming. And then Maryland came and brought the baseball coach and the soccer coach to visit. So you knew that they were serious about making it happen. And that's where he went.
I want to ask a question on that particular topic, because it's hypothetical, Tim. If the MLS existed in 1993, 94, that time frame when Taylor's kind of looking at schools.
He was more 98, 99-ish, probably, when he...
For high school.
Yeah. Oh, for high school? Okay.
Yeah, and then going into college in the late 90s, 97, 98,
Right.
that time frame. Would it have made a difference to him as far as baseball is concerned, do you think?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Both my boys talk about it today. Like if this was available to them, the city stuff, it would have been a really hard not to say yes to it.
Because I think the reason I kind of put you in a trap question there is because we talk about the importance of multi-sports and all these different things, and that we look back with these kind of rosy colored glasses about when we were growing up and we could play all the sports. But you fast forward your career or your kid's career, and when those things are happening, it does change.
Oh, yeah, things have changed.
The calculus.
Yeah, things have changed dramatically, so you do think differently. I mean, I do think there's still room to play other sports up to, you get into the high school ages. Up, when they take the 8, 9, and 10-year-olds and, they're playing soccer all year round, so they can't do anything else, I think that's wrong, because they should be first of all, you need to experience other coaches,
Yeah.
other kids. You know, you can't just be playing with
Cultures. I mean,
Right.
baseball culture is very different, you know, from a traveling standpoint and just the fans.
Well, even in my own experience at SIU, the players that played baseball compared to soccer, completely different. There were farm boys from Southern Illinois,
Yeah.
and then it was all the St. Louis soccer kids. So I liked the experience of doing that.
Yeah.
But I mean, would it be? You know, it's impossible today almost.
Right.
You know, there's a rare kid going to be somewhere in this mix, which is fine. But for you to come into an academy like a St. Louis academy and say, "Well, I'm not doing this unless I can play baseball," you might not have a shot at playing.
Yeah.
You know, and that's, I know, and I work for St. Louis City, but you know, they know my feelings. I want the kids to experience high school stuff. I do. So that part of it's a little bit of a battle.
Yeah.
Always.
It's tough. Very tough.
Yeah, I mean, and I think we should talk about the Maryland days for him a little bit because knowing how highly rated he was coming out of school, and it makes sense. You explain why he picked Maryland. I wonder if Sasha, that was at the soccer coach that came and sat with the baseball coach, you fast forward 15, 16, 17 years down the road in the ACC, does Sasha let him play baseball too, you think?
I don't know.
You know, that's a big what if. But
Well, I mean, first of all, Taylor never saw the baseball field at Maryland. Never played a game because he left.
national team?
Yeah, because he left to go play with the U20s, you know, for the World Cup. So and then after his first semester of sophomore year, he left to go to Germany. So he never really
experienced the baseball.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And would that have worked? I don't know. I don't know if Sasha. Even then, I think it was difficult for him to say okay to it. You know, but he knew that if Taylor's coming to play soccer, he had to throw baseball in there.
So let's talk
Well
about
said.
let's talk a little bit about maybe, you know, because there's a couple different events that occur that I'm sure are those proud moments for you and your wife. You know, you don't need to rank them, but let's just kind of touch on them a little bit. You know, he's going to SLU High. He gets his offer to go play college. He goes to college, and during all this time, he's getting invited to play to the national team. Then he gets invited to go to Germany, you know, to the elevated camp and opportunities. And then he gets drafted into MLS out of all of that environment. You know, those are big events. When you look back at them, kind of walk through them a little bit. You know, because, you know, is everyone a little bit more special than the last? Is it just an accumulative thing?
Yeah.
Or was it, you know, when they're younger, it's always like, I got to imagine like that college, you're going to play at Maryland, going to play at a Duke or wherever.
Right.
That's pretty special. But there's a lot of other special things that occurred. How did you guys handle those events?
Well, I think probably the first one that came about was when he went to the U17 World Cup. Okay, so he was in high school, so he had to leave high school for a short period of time. Okay, and that was a special. They played in Egypt, and so my wife and daughter actually went to Egypt with some family of hers to watch him play.
So soccer dad gets to stay home.
With my son James, who couldn't leave school.
Yeah. I can't imagine
And
what
so-
that conversation was like.
I know. Well, my wife, I mean, I hesitated to say that she could just go to Egypt, her and my daughter by themselves, but she went with her brother-in-law and sister, so it worked out fine. But it was, that was a great experience for Taylor at the time, and very, you know, cool for us as well.
Yeah.
But, you know, he came back, he comes back from that and goes right into playing high school soccer, high school baseball, high school football. So, you know, he just threw everything together at one time. So that to the U20 World Cup was a big deal. Going to Maryland and watching him play, you know, he went to the Final Four his first year. You know, he was freshman player of the year in college, which is crazy.
Yeah.
You know, and so he goes from that to going over. He has a tryout with 1860 Munich.
Right.
So to get on the plane, he loses his scholarship. Okay, so as soon as he steps on the plane, he loses his scholarship. So my wife is like, "No way you're doing this," because it's a scholarship. You know, you're going to get your education. But her dad, who played Major League Baseball, said, "Look, you get these chances very seldom.
Yeah.
Take it." So he goes and makes it right away. You know, they offer him a contract right away. So he stays and you know, he's 18 years old, just turned 19, doesn't know the language, living in an apartment by himself in Munich. So that was a huge challenge. There's no
Go up quick.
FaceTime, Zoom, there's nothing.
Right.
You know, they actually communicate with him. So, I mean, so he'd be calling us 100 times a week because he was homesick, asking his mom, how do you bake a potato? Just stupid stuff, just a call.
What number do I put the toaster on?
No.
It's written in German.
But we were able at that time to go visit him and watch him play games and stuff over there. So we took turns going, so he'd have company and stuff. And then 9/11 hit, and he wanted out. He goes, I want to get out of here because I'm a foreigner here, and everything's uncomfortable. And so 1860 released him. But they released him to the MLS, who put him in the draft, okay, instead of just coming over, because actually Ziggy Smith was with, I don't know what team he was with, San Jose maybe, or one other teams, but he wanted Taylor to come, and so he worked it out, but he comes back and the MLS says, no, Ziggy, you can't have him, he's going into a draft.
Yeah.
So that worked out fine. I mean, it probably worked out better than play for Ziggy Smith. Who knows?
So let's talk about the New England days, because Jared alluded to it earlier, getting up there and kind of the St. Louis presence that was there for him, in the early years. I want to ask specifically about that. When you saw it all playing out, he ends up getting selected. He's going to go up to the Northeast. Talk about what it meant to you to know that he had buddies there. He had peers there. There was, people that he knew, other, Ralston and,
right.
and how important was it for him coming back, having experienced kind of that, not tumultuous, but just kind of the 9/11 events and everything with
Right,
Germany.
right.
But now he's back home and he's got, buddies next door. What did it mean to you as a dad?
Well, we knew, first of all, he came back completely different than he left. Okay, so he was gone a couple of years. He came back, grown up, fully capable of taking care of himself.
He bake his own potato.
Right.
Well, maybe.
No help from his mom.
We didn't get proof of that.
Yeah, right.
He didn't know what side of the tinfoil to use, though. I'm not sure. No, but anyway, he came back and he was a different player, right? So different. He was just mentally better prepared. And playing, Ralston was there. There were some other players there as well from St. Louis. I couldn't tell you who they were at the moment. But, they had a really competitive team, right? And really good. I mean, they went to the final 4 times out of his 8. Lost all 4, but they went. So they were really good, and that St. Louis group was really, really talented.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, but it was very comfortable. It was, it was a comfortable place to go play. It's not like, and you're not going to Munich to play where you don't know the language or anything. So.
And I remember specifically those times, and he, like all of us, he's a huge sports fan first. And he really latched onto those New England teams. I just remember, and maybe I'm dreaming this up, but I'll always just be like, Taylor, you're a St. Louis guy. Do not like those Boston teams. So, he still is a big fan of some of those Boston teams, is he not?
Yeah, he's still a Cardinal fan, big time. He is.
He is.
Oh, yeah. But, he did it, too, for his profession, right? Because he was also doing TV stuff on the side. He was doing all kinds of stuff. So, he couldn't not be complimentary. He could die.
So let's pivot a little bit. Let's get into you here now. You mentioned just a second ago working with St. Louis City. Maybe take a second and explain or describe what your role is, with title or job responsibilities. What are you doing with City? Because you've been there really kind of from the beginning. So tell our listeners kind of what Tim Twellman is, what you mean to St. Louis City for a second here.
Yeah, is there a job title? I'm not sure I have one. Okay, but they actually, when Lutz got hired, our sporting director, he called me. He heard. First of all, the reason he actually called me is because I'm not really affiliated with the club. He was looking for somebody that was neutral in the St. Louis area that had a soccer background. Okay, so he wanted to.
Makes sense.
So he came over. We sat outside at the picnic table a few times, talk about stuff, and what he wanted to do. And then he said, Tim, come on board, work with us. And really it was mainly getting him very comfortable in this market. We saw probably 500 high school games. Right? We went 2 games a night. We went and visited every major college our high school coach, that, the Micah Vanes, all of them.
Yep.
And then just to get him comfortable. Okay, so from that, it has evolved to where I'm involved with the academy, helping them with their college program stuff. And then I'm also working on the community side, doing stuff on that end, because we got a real strong community program. It's free of charge to play, to kids and families that want to play. And we have over 1,000 families participating.
Well,
And it's awesome.
I think credit where credit's due, because I think that's the one thing that's been evident from the organization from the start. They have really latched into the community and done really well from a grassroots effort of encompassing all of our community within just the program in general, and that comes from everybody in the organization.
That's like we have to learn that before you start working there. Right?
Yeah.
This is a further community.
Yeah.
And, granted, we can offer it at no cost because of the Taylor family, right? You can't just, it still costs us quite a bit of money to put this program on.
Yeah.
We have 5 locations across the city. We do a city cup where these kids all come together. It's really special programming,
So let's talk a little bit about kind of the more along the lines of the academy kids and that environment and the role, or maybe the impact that it has had, not only for the team but really for St. Louis soccer in general. Because we've been talking about it, all of our stories ultimately touch where all of us have come from. From our local parishes, CYC to youth and the clubs. And through the Bush days and Gallagher days, etc. But 4 years ago, roughly 3-4 years ago, whatever it is now, whenever the academy is introduced, that's a tectonic shift or impact, to the youth market here.
And I think it's probably taken to today for clubs to start accepting it, because, we went in and stripped clubs of players, right? And we sat with every one of them, talked to them about it. We didn't do it without them knowing. We told them what players we were taking, but it was a little bit of a battle at the beginning. But look, every time one of those directors of a club would say, "I don't like this," I said, "Well, what would you do if you were the player? Would you go?"
Yep.
And they all would.
Absolutely.
Right?
That's the question I asked when we were going through the process. And it kind of leads me to my question, which is, there's the consumerization now of youth sports that we've talked about on this show many, many times. And we just had, a guest on who's in the recruitment role, trying to help people get into that next level. And you had mentioned, part of your responsibilities at City is kind of helping with the college program. Right. This is kind of an open-ended question, Tim, and you can answer it however you need to navigate all the things. But what is the responsibility of an academy program to the kids that are not likely to go pro at the next step? They might eventually, 3-4 steps down the road, but the majority of the kids that you're dealing with in any academy are going to probably have a stint within, colleges before they are,
keep talking.
going to get any sort of pro look.
Right.
So what is the responsibility, in your opinion, of the academy as it relates to the college path?
Yeah, because here's how we relate to the kids. Every one of those kids, if we ask them to come and sit down here, who are they going to play for? They're going to play for Liverpool, Barcelona, St. Louis City, whoever it might be. That should be dreams. Those are good dreams. They should have those dreams. The realization is they have to go through the college program. They have to. I mean, it's actually like less than 5% of the kids actually move on to play professionally from the academy. Mm-hmm. So if the kids understand that, and our role,
and that's specific to City Academy, not MLS Next Academy team.
No, it's City.
Yeah,
right. And it's even less than that, really.
Right.
Okay, so it's a small number, but the actual numbers, if you want to talk about it, is to move on to college is 5%. Okay, so the academy kids have a better shot of being part of that 5% to move on to college, but that number is low. Then to move on to professionally, it's 1%. Okay, so 1% of those kids. So they have to be thinking college. Mm-hmm. And if the other stuff comes along, great. Because I tell all the kids, look, you're a sophomore in high school, you're planning for college. You have to believe that and go for that. That is your process that you must do. If Lutz comes and knocks on your door and says, look, we want to move you, then you can change your plan.
Yeah.
But you can't go back when you're a senior, going into senior year and start figuring out the college scene. It gets to be too late. So, and our role is to make them understand that. The academy's role, the coaches, is to make them the best they can on the field. Okay, they are not there to get them recruited. Okay, and there's a real misconception on who's responsible. Okay, the responsible people are the kids.
Yep.
The kids are responsible. The coaches are there to talk to the coach. If somebody from SMU thinks you're a good, wants to talk to him, good, they'll talk to him. But they're not going to go contact coaches for him.
Yep.
Okay, they're just not. They couldn't. It's impossible. And the ones that, the coaches that'll say, well, we know coaches. I go, no, you don't. There's 2,500 programs that offer men's soccer. You know that many? I don't think so. You might know your friends, the handful of 5, and good, go call them. But if the kid doesn't fit in these 5 programs, they can't go play? No.
Right.
So I tell the kids, look, if you're not taking control of this, it might not happen for you. All right?
So let's talk about Choose It Right in particular. Choose It Right is basically an a website, electronic platform, and what you guys have really done is kind of created a cheat sheet of sorts, so that in order to help these kids communicate, the ones that do and are proactive, they got to reach out. And they got to reach out with something. And ideally, all these coaches' emails are accessible, but you have to send them something, that's substantive.
Right.
Choose It Right. We use it. It's a resume. It's a brilliant platform where you guys can you help the kid, their name, their rank, their GPA, school, referrals, templates.
Yeah.
It has all of that. Why talk a little bit about Choose It Right, and why that component is so important in the process.
Well, the whole Choose It Right came about because I've been working with high school kids for over 20 years, and I needed not to be doing it manually. Okay, because it was like So we partnered with somebody that created the platform. The whole purpose of the college recruiting process is to identify schools that match your academic needs. Mm-hmm. If you do that first, and then you can start contacting them. So we do that first. And from going to Choose It Right, the first thing we do is ask you all your academic requirements. And if you don't have them yet, don't know what your major is, that's fine. But we ask everything so we can start matching you up to schools that it's in the right area of the country, what level you want to play, all that kind of stuff. That little thing in itself that you get would take 100 hours to put together.
Yeah.
And you get it instantly. Okay, we did that because I know from working with families, that was the biggest argument sitting at a table like this in their kitchen. Who's going to do the research? Right, okay, and that was the problem. I mean, when I had my kids doing, I had to do the research, get the college books.
Go to the library, get the binders.
There was no internet.
Exactly.
Right, so we were doing everything by hand. So, once they understand that and they Choose the Right platform, you get the list of schools, and now what do you do with them? You contact them. They're like, well, I don't want to, there's 50 schools here. And the first report you get is usually about 50 schools. They go, we don't want to go to like 30 of those. I go, you don't know what you want right now. So what I want you to do is contact all 50 schools, because by contacting those schools, you're putting yourself in that recruiting mix.
Right.
Until then, they don't know who your kids are. They think they do because I'm playing for Academy. The coaches that might know your kids are probably St. Louis U or Wash U, or, to get known, you got to put yourself in front of them. And so we just give them all the tools to do it.
Right.
And it's simple. It really is a simple process. The more you contact those coaches, the better chance you have to get recruited and at a school that fits your needs. What do you think the biggest problem with college is?
Price.
Right. Okay. So, no, it is.
Yeah. Right.
Right. And, the average scholarship for a soccer player is like 39%. Okay. So, they'll say, well, I want to go to Notre Dame. I go, great. So take 39% of the $350,000 it costs. Can you afford the difference?
Right.
And if you can't, there's no reason to pursue those schools that that you might not be able to get in academically or financially won't work.
Well, and I think the advantage too, knowing the platform, utilizing the platform, and hearing coaches give feedback on it, it's one thing, you joked about, I don't want to have to create the template on my own, right? You've created the template. Well, these coaches on the other end of that email, they don't want to have to like dig for the details.
I know.
Right. So it's all tabbed out. It's really easy.
And I think that's the big, like creating that little profile that you guys create. And I looked at your sons before I came. I mean, they just look, it's just professional. And here's what the biggest, and we did a survey with college coaches to see what they liked and disliked before we did all this. They did not want to have like a link to, go to YouTube, type in my name. They're not going to do it.
Yeah.
They're just not going to because they don't have the time. They got 1,000 emails to go through.
Right.
And I just think the whole benefit of the Choose It Right is that it just simplifies the process for the families. And before I jump off, and it's not just for the athlete, and it's not just for soccer. We have all the sports in there.
Well, that was going to be my question to bring that up.
Yeah, that was my question, is explain how people, like if you were going to give a sales pitch for the platform, what other sports, how do people find you, and they need to contact you on there to get pricing and all that. We don't need to go down that road. This ain't the menu, but just talk about where we locate you at.
Well, first of all, it's all NCAA sports. All sanctioned sports are in there. Okay, so we update the contact information once or twice a year. Okay? It takes a while to get all those things put together, but that's once or twice a year. We actually have a link.
I'll have the link to Choose It Right in the show notes as well.
Perfect.
So.
Yeah, and there's special pricing built into that. Okay, and I want to talk about the pricing because you guys mentioned that earlier about the different companies that are offering this, and they charge an arm and a leg, right? And one of them was the one based in Chicago, NCSA. They came to. I actually helped them start the soccer part of their business. I could not sit with a family and say, "This is what we get. Now it'll be $3,000." I just couldn't say it because it's just too much.
Yeah.
And there's no guarantee that they're going to get you anything. So, what we created was something that costs nothing, basically, so people can use it. And it's not just for the athlete. And I want to touch on that because this is for the student, too, because it still does the same research with students.
Yeah.
Yeah, what I liked about the platform is the matching part that you mentioned, but also I think understanding the landscape of D1, D2, D3 for the athlete specifically, but for the non-student athlete, there's still a lot of options out there too to narrow down your search based on your major, based on your academic capabilities. So yeah, I think it's a great tool. I do want to go back on something really quickly just to clarify because I maybe misheard.
That's it.
So we're talking about the percentages of kids that go to college versus the ones that go on to pro.
Right.
And you had said 5%.
I had to correct myself. Right? 5% move on to college.
Only 5%
of all high school kids.
Oh, okay.
Not
That's
just-
the clarification
not-
I want.
okay.
Yes. I was going to say,
No,
I think the number is higher for the academy to go to
Oh,
college.
absolutely. No, there's like 400,000 high school boys playing,
Yeah.
and 5% will move on to playing college.
Understood. Okay.
Now, I tell the boys this too, though. Just because you play for the academy doesn't mean it's
No.
automatic.
Yeah, I agree.
And you
100%.
don't want to go to a school that doesn't really fit your academic needs because the sport will end,
Yes.
right? I mean, we go back to talking about Taylor leaving school. He just graduated last week. Seriously, he went back, and all this time he's been taking classes.
Who cried more, you or mom?
Well, I cried for him because I go, geez, get rid of the schoolwork, would you? He's like,
You don't have enough to do?
No,
Taylor?
I know. I go, Taylor, what are you up to? Because I got to write a paper. I'm like, geez, come on, give us a break here.
Yeah. Well, and Damon Rensing has said it on our show because coming from a soccer coach who is in the mix of this, it's extremely good advice because he's like, okay, if you pick the school, there's going to be oftentimes you're injured or you're not in favor or you're hurt or you're not in good form and
break.
Or it's break. The school piece has to work, and this is what you're talking about on the platform, doing your research. And for me, Zach, and I'll bow out to JB, but the one thing that I like the best about the program is the amount of work that it takes to be able to find the right people to contact and the right emails. And the platform is extremely user-friendly, where I think you mentioned that you update it once or twice a year. I only used it for the soccer side, but I'd imagine all the sports, you have the pertinent people, because there is turnover in this business. And just because the coach, the recruiting director last year doesn't mean it's the same recruiting. And you guys take the guesswork out of it. That's really handy.
It is. And I think that was the hardest part for me working before we had this, is that I had to figure this out for the families. And that was the biggest argument for every family, is to do the research. And look, the research is done, and now what you do with it is the most important part.
It's all filter.
Yep.
Now you get to filter. It's my favorite button on any website.
It's filter.
The filter, yeah.
Yeah, because I don't need all the other bullshit. I just want to get right.
Does your
down to what
filter
I'm looking-
typically go to lowest price first? Is that the filter that's most common?
No,
on
my
yours?
wife has broke me. She's got me on the whole Amazon Prime. You filter by reviews, dummy.
That's pretty good.
Tim Twellman, really appreciate your time, man. This has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, we could be. I have so many more questions, and I mean, I'm sure we could talk for hours, but this has been great. I
Yeah,
appreciate
let
you
me
coming on.
say one more thing.
Yeah.
This is for all the soccer people out there and other sports as well, is that the D1 concept compared to what other levels you can play, it really does not matter if you want to try to continue playing professionally.
Yep.
Now, and I think the D1 thing is strictly an ego thing, and I get it. I get it. Get it for parents, and for the kids that walk down the hall and say, "Look, I'm a D1 player. I'm going to, Indiana to play." When they graduate, nobody cares.
Yep.
Right. So they just have to realize, find a school that fits everything they're looking for, and go for it. If you're good enough, you're going to play the next level.
I can hear Kenny Godat yelling through his car speakers right now. People care, Tim. I care, Tim.
Yeah, he definitely wants to remind you that he went to Indiana.
Oh yeah, that part.
I love that
No.
guy, though.
I mean, but it's important
You know,
because
you're right.
the college
Totally.
men's game right now is evolving at such a clip where it's becoming older, and there's more numbers being added to it because there's a lot more out of this world population coming in that's not domestic. So what you're saying is there's a lot of credence to it.
It really is, and I think there's places to play for these kids. They just have to be open-minded.
Agreed.
Well,
I love it. I love it. Tim Twellman, thank you very much for joining us.
I
man.
really appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
We will be keeping in touch. I'm sure I'll see you around the facility there as well.
Absolutely.
Gentlemen, that was fun. I'm going to roll us out here with a little bit more summertime. Like I said, manifest. Manifest. Like, review, follow, share. Catch you next time. Choose the right link will be in the show notes. We'll catch you guys on the next show. See ya.
Honking at the honey in front of you with the light eyes. She turned around to see what you beeping at.